Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different. We're heading to Middle Earth.
With a 5e twist.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to be diving into the brand new Lord of the Rings 5e source book from D&D Beyond.
Yeah, for all of you out there who are both D&D fanatics and Tolkien fans, get ready. This is going to be a treat.
So this isn't just like some slapped together reskin of D&D.
Right. This is a faithful adaptation of the already existing One Ring RPG.
Yeah, we actually heard from the original designer of One Ring, Francesco Nepatello, in the video we watched for today.
Yeah.
Sounds like. He and Marco Maggi really focused on making the source book feel authentically like Middle Earth.
Which is something that a lot of other Lord of the Rings games have kind of missed the mark on. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
They went for generic fantasy. They lost that Tolkien magic.
For sure. And Nepatello specifically said that they wanted to avoid that. And one way that they did that was actually by limiting some player choices, which I know that might sound kind of counterintuitive to some D&D veterans out there.
Right.
Yeah, but it's really interesting how they did that. By narrowing down the options, the game actually feels more like Tolkien's world. You've got, fewer character options, less overwhelming magic, and a tight focus on the region around Eriador.
So it's less about being some like superpowered hero.
Yeah.
And more about capturing that Tolkien feel.
Exactly.
Nice.
It's a little grittier, a little more old school D&D.
I like it.
Now let's talk about the playable cultures in this game. We got hobbits, of course, because what's a journey through Middle Earth without hobbits?
Exactly.
You can also play as a Ranger of the North, channeling your inner Aragorn, or maybe you'd prefer to be an Elf of Lindon, with all the wisdom and grace of Elrond's people.
Okay, those all sound awesome.
Right.
Especially for like big Tolkien fans like myself.
Yeah.
But what other choices are there?
Well, if you're drawn to the sturdier folk, there's always the dwarves of Durin's folk, always seeking to reclaim their lost kingdom. And lastly, we have the men of Dale, rebuilding their lives after the shadow smog has passed. Hold on. So you're telling me I could play as like a descendant of Bard the Bowman?
Yeah.
And like defend Dale from leftover dragon threats?
Exactly.
Sign me up.
Each culture is so deeply rooted in Tolkien's world, you're instantly connected to the setting. But what really sets this apart from typical D&D is how magic works. It's much more subtle and in line with how Tolkien wrote it.
Yeah, you're right. It's not about like, flashy spells and throwing fireballs around.
Yeah.
So how does magic work in this adaptation?
Instead of the usual spellcasting, you have something called magical successes. Think of them as, special abilities tied to items, ancestry, or other qualities.
Okay, give me an example. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this.
Okay. Remember how the elves in the Fellowship of the Ring gave the hobbits cloaks to help them blend in? That's a magical success.
Okay.
Maybe you have a magical ring that grants you heightened awareness, or a sword that shines when orcs are nearby.
Okay. So it's less about actively casting spells and more about items themselves just having inherent power. That does feel very Tolkien.
Exactly. And there's another cool system called crafts. It represents expertise taken to an almost supernatural level. For example, think of songcraft.
Now we're talking. In Tolkien's world, songs have power. They inspire courage, weave enchantments, even shape reality. So how does that work mechanically?
In this game, songcraft lets players tap into that power, using their voices to achieve certain effects. It's a beautiful way to bring those epic moments from the books to life at your table.
You know what? I love that they're leaning into these unique aspects of Tolkien's world. They didn't just take D&D and slap a Lord of the Rings skin on it. They're really thoughtfully incorporating the spirit of the source material.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
And it gets even better. They've even changed how character classes work. Instead of traditional classes, this game uses callings.
Okay.
But a calling is more than just a profession. It represents the reason your character is adventuring in the first place.
Okay, so it's less about what your character does and more about what drives them. I like that. But what are the actual calling options? What can players choose from?
Well, there are 6 callings. Each one's inspired by classic Tolkien heroes. So first we have the captain, a natural leader. They inspire through courage and example. Think Aragorn, leading the fellowship with strength and wisdom.
Okay, I like it. It's not just about barking orders. It's about inspiring others to greatness. What else is there?
Next is the champion, a powerful warrior who stands against the darkness. Someone like Boromir, skilled in battle and fiercely loyal. Then there's the messenger, who embodies the power of words and connections, kind of like Gandalf, using communication to overcome obstacles.
Ooh, I can see like A lot of fun and role-playing potential with that one.
For sure.
You know, like using clever words to outwit enemies or inspire allies.
Exactly. Then we have the scholar, driven by a thirst for knowledge. Imagine someone like Elrond, delving into the lore and history of Middle-earth to uncover secrets. If you're more the adventurous type, there's the treasure hunter. They're seeking lost artifacts and unraveling mysteries, perhaps like Bilbo in The Hobbit.
Okay, so we've got leaders, warriors, talkers, and lore seekers. What's the last calling?
Last but not least, we have the warden, a vigilant protector who defends the innocent. Think of the brave men and women who defended Helm's Deep, standing strong against the forces of darkness.
So each calling, it provides like a framework for why your character is adventuring, their goals, and how they interact with the world. But here's a question. What happens when those motivations get, like, twisted? You know?
Yeah.
We all know that Tolkien's world is full of temptation and inner struggle. How does the game handle that?
That's where the shadow path comes in.
Okay.
Each calling has a shadow path. It's a way in which their motivations can become corrupted. Think of Boromir again. He started as a noble champion. But the ring's influence, it warped his desire for good into a lust for power.
So it's not about turning evil, but it's about portraying that internal conflict, those tough choices that even the most heroic characters face.
Exactly. And to really drive home the toll that facing evil takes on a character, the game introduces shadow points. Now, don't let the names scare you.
Okay.
They're not about turning into a villain. They represent, like, the anguish, doubt, and the mental and emotional weight of fighting the darkness.
So similar to the shadow path concept, shadow points are a way to explore, like, the psychological impact of those difficult choices. I imagine like a ranger struggling with their responsibility, or a hobbit haunted by their journey, or a dwarf grieving for their lost homeland.
Precisely. And these mechanics, they really encourage role-playing and make you think about the motivations and burdens of your character.
Yeah.
But there's also a system in place to reward players for staying true to their heroic calling.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom. There's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Tell me more.
As you achieve great deeds and stay true to your character's virtues, you'll receive special items or boons from your culture. These aren't random loot drops. They're woven into the story, which makes them feel more meaningful and powerful.
Oh, I love that. It's like Bilbo finding Sting, or Aragorn inheriting Andoril. Those weren't just any old swords. They were deeply connected to their destinies.
Exactly. Now let's move on to the creatures you'll encounter in this version of Middle-earth. They've taken a quality over quantity approach.
Okay.
Instead of a massive bestiary with tons of new monsters, you'll mostly be facing those iconic creatures from Tolkien's world.
So you're telling me I can finally have that epic showdown with the Balrog? My inner 12-year-old is screaming right now.
Yeah.
But does that mean there's no room for, like, new creatures?
Yeah.
What if I want to create, like, a unique threat for my players?
Don't worry, they've thought of that too. While the bestiary is focused on familiar foes, there are rules for creating nameless creatures.
Okay.
This system gives DMs the tools to design new monsters that still feel authentic to Tolkien's world.
That's a relief. I always love adding my own little twist to campaigns. Speaking of which, let's talk about the world itself. What kind of support does this sourcebook provide for bringing Middle-earth to life at the table?
This is where the book truly shines. It's packed with rich lore, detailed descriptions of locations, information on key figures, and even beautifully illustrated maps. The map of the Shire, for instance, is incredibly detailed and really brings the place to life.
Okay, you had me at beautifully illustrated maps. I'm a sucker for a good map, especially when it comes to like a world as iconic as Middle-earth. But all that information can feel kind of overwhelming. How easy is it for a DM to actually use all this lore in their game?
Well, they've implemented a clever system called landmarks. Think of them as like bite-sized chunks of information, each one representing a point of interest.
Okay.
It could be an ancient ruin, a bustling town, a hidden glen, or even a place of power.
So it's like a pre-built toolbox for DMs. Just pick a landmark, drop it into your game, and boom, instant adventure hook.
Exactly. And the best part is landmarks are incredibly flexible.
Okay.
You can use them as one-shot adventures, link them together into a larger campaign, or just sprinkle them throughout your world as points of interest for your players to discover.
Ooh, I am already imagining all the possibilities. A mysterious ruin whispering with forgotten magic, a hidden valley where elves still dwell, or even dare I say it, a chance encounter with Tom Bombadil himself.
The possibilities are endless. And this landmark system, it really encourages exploration and makes the world feel alive and dynamic. But it's not just about locations. This adaptation really captures the spirit of Tolkien's work. You know, that sense of wonder, the epic scope, these struggles between good and evil, it's all there, waiting to be discovered.
I think that's what excites me most about this. It's not just a reskin D&D, it's like a love letter to Middle-earth. It's designed to evoke that same sense of wonder and adventure we all felt when we first experienced Tolkien's world.
It really does feel like they've given us the keys to Middle-earth.
Yeah.
But instead of driving the same familiar routes, we have the freedom to explore, like back roads and hidden paths.
It's perfect for D&D, right?
Yeah.
Because at its heart, D&D is about collaborative storytelling.
Yeah.
And this adaptation, it gives us the framework and the tools, but it's up to us, the players, and the DMs.
Yeah.
To build something unique, something memorable.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. This isn't a passive experience. It's about everyone at the table contributing to the narrative, shaping the destinies of their characters, and maybe even the fate of Middle-earth itself.
Ooh, that's epic.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I have one last question for you. We've talked about shadow points and how they represent, the emotional and mental toll of adventuring. For any DMs listening, how do you think this mechanic could be used to tell richer, more compelling stories in your games?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think shadow points, they offer a fantastic opportunity to explore, the inner lives of your characters. Think about specific moments from the books or movies that could inspire, creative uses of shadow. What if a character witnesses the destruction of their village or is forced to make a difficult choice? That weighs heavily on their conscience. These moments, they can be turning points for characters, and shadow points provide a tangible way to represent that internal struggle.
Yeah, it's not just about hitting things with swords and casting spells. It's about those internal battles.
Yeah.
Those moral dilemmas that make characters truly relatable and compelling.
Exactly.
And Tolkien's world, it's full of those moments.
Absolutely. And by incorporating shadow points thoughtfully, you can weave those themes of sacrifice, temptation, and the enduring strength of hope into your own games.
It sounds like this Lord of the Rings 5e adaptation. It's really captured the essence of Tolkien's work, while also giving players and DMs the freedom to create their own adventures within this beloved world. If you're a D&D fan and you're also passionate about Tolkien, this sourcebook is definitely worth checking out.
Absolutely. It's an exciting blend of familiar mechanics and fresh ideas. Perfect for anyone who's ever dreamed of stepping into Middle-earth and forging their own legend.
Well, folks, there you have it. Our deep dive into the Lord of the Rings 5e sourcebook from D&D Beyond is complete. We hope you found it as exciting as we did. And remember, whether you're facing down orcs in the Misty Mountains or navigating the social complexities of Rivendell, the true heroes are those who never give up hope, even when the shadows seem darkest. If you have enjoyed this deep dive podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel.